Welcome to Crossroads. The United States is on the brink of carrying out strikes against Venezuelan cartels. Now, they're saying this could be a full-scale war. Probably not. Trump is saying it's not. This is going to be airstrikes. And it could even include key leaders of the country because guess what? They've been labeled as cartel leaders and terrorists. Now, the situation is heating up. I'll be going into what exactly is happening and why in today's episode. Also, meanwhile, after announcing his plans to end all migration from all third world countries and to begin deporting people on a larger scale, Trump spoke with reporters and reiterated that he's very serious about doing all of this. Also, on another topic, well, the plot thickens. New details are emerging on potential illegal spying operations through the Arctic frost investigations under former special counsel Jack Smith. Now, I'll be talking about these topics a whole lot more today, so don't forget to hit the like button, and let's get started. Now, first of all, the United States is on the brink of carrying out airstrikes against Venezuelan cartels. And guess who has been labeled a cartel leader? Well, key leaders of the entire country. President Trump has ordered the airspace over Venezuela to close fully, with the exception of military use of airspace. Namely the American military. And now he is allegedly giving the country's leader, Nicolas Maduro, an ultimatum. Flee the country immediately if you value your life. Daily Mail said this: Donald Trump warned Venezuelan dictator Nicolas Maduro to flee alongside his wife or face the consequences, whatever could the consequences be, as the U.S. loads up on warships and troops in the region. It says the talks occurred Friday amid a series of lethal American drone strikes against suspected Venezuelan drug traffickers in the region that has killed over 80 people. These, of course, are the destruction of the drug trafficking boats. Briefly, I'm going to comment on something. You might have seen the headlines that Pete Hegseth, Secretary of War, ordered the double tap of an alleged drug trafficker boat. In other words, there was a drug trafficker boat, they blew it up, there were survivors, and then they re-blew them up. And of course, they're saying Pete Hegseth gave the call. Turns out the media was lying. It was a general that gave the call, because when is the Secretary of Defense involved in saying, an individual strike? I will comment on that briefly, which is, if we remember the war in Iraq and Afghanistan and the videos coming out of destroying terrorists, or even, for example, with Syria and other things when we were destroying ISIS, we got to see a lot of these similar videos come out. Black and white footage, AC-130 gunship or Apache helicopters, usually, or sometimes Predator drones. They have these kind of heat signature things. You can see the body heat, and they're blowing up terrorists, right? We've probably all seen some of the videos by now. During the wars against terrorism, you might remember that oftentimes they would destroy a vehicle carrying terrorists. There would be survivors, they'd run, and the, again, military planes would shoot them again. If there were survivors, they would shoot them again. That was common. That was the way war was done. We've probably, again, all seen videos of it. The context of these drug trafficking boats, these are allegedly being run by Tren de Aragua, which is, again, a Venezuelan gang, now designated as a terrorist organization, and also working with the Cartel of the Suns, allegedly, take it as you will, which is also now designated as a terrorist organization and a gang. And Cartel of the Suns also works with FARC, which is a long-known terrorist organization, a narco-terror organization, which has even been terrorizing opposition within Venezuela. And so what you're watching right now, you could argue about the ethics of it, but this is the common modus operandi that has been practiced by the United States, including in the broader war on terror in Afghanistan, Iraq, and against ISIS. And so that would be my general comment on it. But in the context of that, back to what's happening right now with the calls for Maduro to flee. It says here, the president had even assured Maduro of safe passage for himself, his wife, and his son if he resigned immediately, the Miami Herald reported. It says a force familiar with the call said that Maduro asked Trump for global amnesty. Hey, no war, let me leave, please don't blow me up. Because remember, even under Biden, in fact, Maduro has been labeled the leader of the cartel of the Suns, which is also a terrorist organization. Maduro is literally classified as a terrorist leader. And what kind of military assets can you use against a terrorist leader? You can basically kill them with impunity, according to what we've seen again with American law on the war on terror. Meaning Maduro's life is in danger right now, and he knows it. And so he's asking Trump for amnesty. Hey, let me flee the country. If he flees the country, there's already a government in waiting for Venezuela. The winner, we would say, as has been recognized by both the Trump administration and the Biden administration of the Venezuelan 2018 elections, was Juan Guaido. Juan Guaido is living in exile right now in Florida. And very likely, if Maduro flees, Guaido will be planted again as the official winner of the Venezuelan elections. And this ties into broader issues, which I'll have to get into maybe in future episodes, because there's too much to talk about in one day. But if you want to get into it, Maduro was the successor of, again, Hugo Chavez, handpicked by Chavez. Chavez overthrew the American footprint basically in all of Latin America. The entire Monroe Doctrine was overturned by Chavez working together with Fidel Castro. Organizations that they established all throughout Latin America to push out the United States and bring in Russian, Chinese, and Iranian interests. Basically, they disconnected Latin America from the United States and connected it to China. That was Castro and that was Chavez. Maduro was the successor of Chavez. And then when Maduro lost the 2018 elections, leading to the mass protests in 2019, as you might remember, Russia deployed nuclear-capable bombers to Venezuela and then told the United States that if we intervened, there would be catastrophic consequences. And of course, Trump actually backed off. Russia's not coming to the rescue this time, neither is China. Maduro was basically left to this. And when they were having mass protests on the streets of Venezuelans saying, hey, you stole the election, and that was recognized even by Biden, by the way, that they stole the election, Guaido fled. And of course, when people were protesting, Maduro worked with organizations, armed groups tied to cartels and FARC, F-A-R-C, a narco-terrorist organization, to kill them, to do point-blank shootings, to raid people's apartments, the whole 9 yards, to destroy his opposition and crush them. The opposition leader, ready to retake the presidency in Venezuela, is currently living in Florida. He's again, the government in exile. If Maduro leaves, he will likely take over the country. Very likely after the United States continues bombing all the cartel assets, because the military in Venezuela is tied to the cartel of the Suns. Now, back to what's happening right now, it says this. A source familiar to the call said that Maduro asked Trump for global amnesty, which the president rejected before asking to keep his control of the Venezuelan armed forces in exchange for free elections. We'll see how that goes. It says Trump also said no to that idea before Maduro rejected the idea of resigning. The president confirmed Sunday that the talks had occurred amid soaring tensions between the two countries, while Caracas slammed what it called U.S. preparations for an attack. So the question right now for Maduro is, gee, Mr. President, why are you showing me a picture of my house, hypothetically speaking? And Trump, as he likes to say, is saying basically, well, you're going to have to figure that one out for yourself. But guess what? You're not going to stay in power. Now, look, remember also, the Trump administration has again deemed the Cartel of the Suns a terrorist organization. They've also now declared Maduro and other key leaders of Venezuela as the leaders of that said cartel and terrorist organization. These are now considered terrorist leaders, meaning they are valid military targets and they can be killed with impunity. Trump has been saying they're not going to be launching like a full-scale war there. Media suggesting we're going to get involved in a ground war. Probably not, but what you will likely watch are airstrikes similar to what we've been watching against the drug boats being carried out internally within Venezuelan airspace, within the country. Drug grows, maybe key figures, terrorist leaders, in other words, government officials in Venezuela. and also probably special forces raids. That will probably be the extent of it. Now, Maduro reached out for help also from Russia and the Chinese Communist Party because they came to his rescue back in 2018 and 2019. As of now, neither is doing it. In fact, Russia has even said that they're pulling out their assets from the country. Russia is even telling its citizens to leave the country. So they're not coming to Venezuela's rescue. They're not going to do it this time. Now, look, also another topic. After announcing his plans to end migration from all third world countries, every single one of them, and to start deporting people on a larger mass scale. And look, we'll have to see whether it happens because he's been saying it for, since his first term in office, frankly. Trump spoke with reporters aboard Air Force One on Sunday, and he clarified that he's actually very serious about moving forward with this. Watch.
How long does your administration plan to pause asylum into the U.S.?
I think a long time.
Can you give any kind of time?
We don't want those people. We have enough problems. We don't want those people.
Is that a year, 2 years?
No time limit.
And then,
but it could be a long time.
You said that.
We don't want those people. Do you understand that?
I understand.
You understand it?
I understand.
Who are you with?
I'm with News Nation. So
Okay,
my name's Lindsay.
News Nation. Great. But
Thank
let
you.
me just say you something. We don't want those people. Does that make sense? You know why we don't want them? Because many of them are no good, and they shouldn't be in our country.
What do you mean by those people?
The people from different countries that are not friendly to us, and countries that are out of control themselves. Countries like Somalia that have virtually no government, no military, no police. All they do is go around killing each other. Then they come into our country and tell us how to run our country. We don't want them.
Are you talking countries roughly?
You got to talk up.
She said how many countries?
Is there a list?
Well, I guess we gave you 19, right? There's probably more than that.
Is that what you mean when you mean third world countries, those 19?
No, I don't think they're all third world, but in many cases they are third world. They're not good countries. They're very crime-ridden countries. They're countries that don't do a good job. They're countries that don't register from the standpoint of success. And we, frankly, don't need their people coming into our country telling us what to do.
And you talk about denaturalizing.
I'm talking about like Somalia, where you have a congressman goes around telling everybody about our Constitution, and yet she supposedly came into our country by marrying her brother. Well, if that's true, she shouldn't be a congressman, and we should throw her the hell out of our country.
Now, this deportation plan is actually pretty sweeping. And look, there's the big question, will Trump actually do it? Because, he's been saying since, again, his 2016 campaign, he's going to, deport all the illegal immigrants. He still hasn't done it, right? You could say they're doing it pretty quick. I don't know, are they? We'll see how it goes. But this does potentially include denaturalization of people who are viewed as harmful to this nation. This could be the deportation of anybody who has been a drain on the American system at all. If they're on welfare, if they get food stamps, if they haven't learned English, meaning they haven't even integrated into American society, they might lose their visas, they might be deported. They're even re-examining every single person who applied for amnesty and making them reapply. The extent of this cannot be understated. What Trump is doing right now is very significant, actually. This is a look at every single migrant, every single person on the amnesty wait list. This is a look into every single illegal immigrant who are already slated for deportation. The removal of temporary protection status from most people who are brought in under Biden. Trump saying he's going to repeal all of that, deport all of them. At the very least, this means deportation orders, whether they follow it or not. And again, the ending of any additional migration from any third world country. This is very sweeping right now. If you were to get my personal take on it, I think the only way Trump could possibly carry out this operation and get around the issue he's had where he's been trying to do it and hasn't been able to, would be if they used the military to do it. If you were to have me go on a limb and say what my personal belief would be of my assumption of how this could be carried out, I would suggest that maybe this is why you have this call being issued by the Democrats right now, calling on the military to not follow unlawful orders, very likely because the military will be involved in carrying out some of these operations. At the very least, we can see already that in some states, Los Angeles, for example, in California, Chicago, Washington, D.C., military assets have been deployed alongside ICE to facilitate and help with their operations. Again, they're able to guard them and guard federal buildings. I would imagine this will be probably more broadly used within the United States. You also have the military being used to help secure the border, where they again took all the BLM land, Bureau of Land Management land, and militarized it. And so what you're likely going to be watching is more heavy military involvement within these operations, which in reality would be the only way Trump could possibly hope to carry this out on the scale that he's talking about. We will see whether or not that happens, but at least what he is talking about is basically a reevaluation of every single migrant in the country. Now, like also on his statements that he could even denaturalize some people, he's standing by that plan. This is him explaining it. Watch.
Mr. President, you said that you might denaturalize some American citizens. Can you talk about
You mean people that are in here that shouldn't be here?
that became Americans? Are you trying
Well,
to
we'll see. I mean, yeah, if we have criminals that came into our country and they were naturalized maybe through a fight with somebody that didn't know what they were doing, if I have the power to do it, I'm not sure that I do, but if I do, I would denaturalize absolutely. Dan, do you have a question? Yeah.
What do you mean by reverse migration?
It means get people out that are in our country, get them out of here. I want to get them out. We got a lot of people in our country that shouldn't be here, and they came in through Biden, and he was the worst president in the history of our country. But the single biggest thing he did was allow millions of people into our country that shouldn't be here. Drug dealers, prisons were opened up and allowed to come into our country. You take a look at the people that were allowed to come into our country. We're paying a big price for it, and we will for years to come, including the recent killer of two wonderful National Guards people. And I'll tell you what, that animal should not have been allowed to come into our country.
Now, I'll note what he's talking about here specifically is people who were naturalized during the time of the Biden administration, right? Naturalized through Biden, as he says. Now, that could be, of course, people who were brought here after the American pullout from Afghanistan and the fall of Bagram Airport, that whole fiasco. That could mean a lot of people who were Afghans who were brought here. They said they vetted people. Turns out they did not. They just loaded them up on planes. Trump wants them out, basically. This could also be people who Trump says are here but shouldn't be here. This could be the denaturalization of people who, for example, maybe committed migration fraud. Maybe they married somebody illegally and claimed and then did it to, for example, defraud the American migration system. It could be something like that. It could be people who maybe are terrorist aligned. That is one of the big issues here. People who have been radicalized or have shown signs of radicalization since being here. It could include criminals, people who came here, even were naturalized or given green cards, and they've committed crimes. Very likely all of this will be taken into consideration because that is what Trump's talking about. Now, look, on that point also, Border Czar Tom Homan is now saying he believes most migrants from third world countries will be deported under the new policies. And that's a big deal because what is a third world country? Which countries in the world qualify as third world countries, right? Well, that's India. That is almost all of Africa. That's almost all of Latin America. That's most of Asia, including China, by the way. It's still designated as a developing country, legally designated. The only first world countries would basically be the United States, Canada, Western Europe, Australia, and Japan, South Korea, and a handful of others. You don't have a lot of countries that are not regarded as third world countries. And if he's saying they're going to deport most migrants, not even illegal immigrants, but migrants from third world countries, that is huge. This is Tom Homan speaking on Fox News' Sunday Morning Futures about it. Watch.
And here's what people need to understand. In these third world nations, they don't have systems like we do. So a lot of these Afghanistans, when they did get here and get vetted, they had no identification at all. Not a single travel document, not one piece of identification. And we're going to count on the people that run Afghanistan, the Taliban, to provide us any information who the bad guys were or who the good guys are? Certainly not. And many people need to understand that most terrorists in this world, most of them, aren't in any database. because unless they were found on a battlefield by DOD and did a retina scan and did into biometrics there, unless you're part of a T3 undercover investigation, we don't know who they are. So, and the same thing with illegal aliens, that over 10 million that came across the border in Joe Biden. There's no way to vet these people. You think El Salvador or Turkey or Sudan or any of these countries have the databases or system checks that we have? Do you think the government of China, Russia, Turkey, you think they're going to share that data with us even if they did have it? There's no way to clearly vet these people, 100% that they're safe to come to this country from these third world nations. President Trump's doing the right thing, reviewing every one of these people that came under the Biden administration and drilling down on them. I really, truly think that most of them are going to end up being deported because we're not going to be able to properly vet them.
Now, look, we're going to have to see how broad this program actually is and whether, it carries over to the next administration, because the reality is, at the current pace of which they're deporting people, which is a lot of people. By the time, if they continue at the current pace, Trump will not even be able to deport the number of illegal immigrants who came into the United States even just under Biden. The pace they're at would not be able to deport even that number of people who are, again, documented illegal, known illegal immigrants. If they're talking about even re-examining every single migrant, every single foreign-born person, every single visa, you're talking over 50 million people. And that does not even include the, probably the full number, because this is just going by census numbers. You're talking like 54 million people, as cited by Trump, by the way. If they want to re-examine every single case, give deportation orders on anyone they say committed fraud, pull the visas of entire regions of people, investigate for criminal fraud within entire regions. Trump's talking a lot about the Somali community and the Afghan community, and he wants to deport every single illegal immigrant and even repeal temporary protection status, meaning the Biden guys. At the current rate at which they're deporting people, they will never accomplish it. And so the question is, will they expand the operations? Will they use the military for it, which might be the only way they could do it if they want to do that? That would be the only way they could do it. And the bigger question is, what legal challenges will they face? Because especially if you're going to denaturalize people, because they would be U.S. citizens, they would have access to the American courts, meaning you'd have lawsuit you'd have a lot of lawsuits. Could they do it? What would be the process for it? How would they manage the scale? And if they're already doing it as large as they are, and they will, at the current pace, will not even meet the threshold of deporting people who came in just under Biden, how will they accomplish this? We'll have to see the reality of it, but they are saying they're going to do it. So maybe they have a solution for it. Now, on another topic, though, there's a broader investigation right now into food stamps, in particular, looking into fraud and abuse around the SNAP program. We'll be talking more about what's happening after we come back from a quick break.
All right, just a pause here for a super quick moment. You are, of course, watching Crossroads with Joshua Philipp. I'm just here to share a message about American Hartford Gold, my own personal gold and silver bullion dealer. Now, obviously, the recent tariffs have made the markets super turbulent and volatile. With every new piece of tariff news, the markets seem to either crash up or crash down. And of course, it's worth mentioning that these conditions don't only affect Wall Street. They affect all of us through our investments and our retirement accounts. That's why I'd like to introduce you to a company that I trust and I myself use to secure my own savings, American Hartford Gold. They specialize in helping Americans move our assets into something tangible, into something you can actually hold, which is physical gold and physical silver, two precious metals that act as a hedge against all those decisions being made in Washington, D.C. They have an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. They have thousands of 5-star reviews, and they make the whole buying process super simple. Your metals can be shipped directly to your door, or you can transfer your current retirement account to a tax-advantaged gold IRA. And the best part is that right now, American Hartford Gold is offering an exclusive offer. When you call them today and you mention the name Joshua, you could receive up to $15,000 in free silver with your initial investment. Take advantage of their special offer. You can either just call them at 877-260-2764 or text Joshua to 65532. All their information will also be down in the description box below. And now, back to Crossroads.
Welcome back. There's a broader investigation taking place right now into food stamps, right? The SNAP program. And in particular, they're now investigating potential fraud and abuse around the SNAP program. And it turns out that among these investigations, they're finding that some liquor stores and smoke shops have been authorized to take payments from SNAP cards. Now, Just the News said this. Even before the shutdown, the Trump administration planned to crack down on fraud in the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. And it says, and ensure any government assistance is used for healthy and nutritional foods, not junk. Junk, for example, like cigarettes and alcohol. It says the One Big Beautiful Bill Act made specific changes to qualifying for the program, as well as a redefined list of products for which SNAP cannot be used. Right? They're talking about like sugary drinks or soda or junk food. If the whole thing is about supplemental nutrition, well, you're not going to get a lot of nutritional supplement through, garbage, basically. It says an analysis of SNAP retailer data by the Foundation for Government Accountability published on Monday found that more than 5,000 liquor and smoke shops were approved retailers under the program, meaning they can accept food stamps, according to research findings shared exclusively with Just the News. It says breaking down the data, more than 4,000 stores promoted alcohol in their title, and another 1,000 did so for tobacco. The foundation told Just the News the real number could be even higher, considering researchers only counted stores that reference those products in their titles. Now, my take on this, if they're doing a nationwide investigation of stores that, are like, SNAP recipients, and they only found 5,000, that's not a lot across the entire country, okay? The other thing I would note on this, there are plenty of grocery stores that sell alcohol. There are plenty of grocery stores that sell cigarettes. And also, in some states, the liquor store is also your kind of go-to place for like groceries. I know, for example, in Southern California, where I'm from, a lot of the liquor stores are your local convenience stores. And so you can buy your canned soup and your snacks, or, if you want like a normal drink, you can go there. Yes, they have alcohol, and a lot of it is alcohol, but you can buy a lot of normal food there as well. But at the same time, you also have some just really designated liquor stores, designated smoke shops. And I do think there is room for a broader investigation, let's say, into these specific liquor stores and smoke shops. Because again, first of all, some of them don't even list in their name that they're smoke shops, or liquor stores, for example. But some of them, if they're exclusively selling alcohol or cigarettes or, whatever other tobacco products, whatever else they sell these days, and they accept SNAP benefits, well, it may look a bit bad for them, let's put it that way. So there are going to be broader investigations into this. Now, also on another topic, new details are emerging on potential illegal spying through Arctic frost investigations under former special counsel Jack Smith. The Federalist said this: the Biden administration okayed special counsel Jack Smith subpoenaing congressional phone records, knowing the subpoenas were unconstitutional, emails released last week revealed. Why is this such a big deal? What is the threshold of committing a major crime? Typically, whether you did it knowingly. If they're suggesting that there were unconstitutional investigations being carried out, things being done illegally, and it was knowingly done, what does that mean for the people involved? It could mean that they knowingly committed, again, major crimes, right? Things that violate the Constitution, spying on members of Congress, monitoring their phone records, which could actually include a lot of national security breaches. This could lead to broader investigations into Jack Smith's entire former team. This could also launch investigations into any person involved with that, any person they were communicating with, because they would have to look at this in a national security level. The significance of this cannot be understated. This is basically expanding into a broader investigation into the entire special counsel, the operations they carried out, the legality or illegality of it, and anybody who was involved on the periphery. This could be very significant depending if Trump goes that way. But it adds here, it says, That same trove of documents also established the illegality of the non-disclosure orders issued by the courts to prevent the telecommunications providers from alerting the members of Congress of the unconstitutional seizure of their toll records. Because Jack Smith had to go through the telecom companies, right, the phone companies. If the phone companies were involved with this and there were non-disclosure orders, that will also be looked at on, well, did they violate the law? And was it the phone companies or the telecom companies who violated the law, or were they pressured through unconstitutional actions of a federal investigation? That's going to be the other big question. It adds here, though, last week, as the nation turns attention ahead to travel and Turkey, again, Thanksgiving, it says Senator Chuck Grassley released another 24 documents related to the Arctic frost investigations of President Donald Trump and Special Counsel Jack Smith, subpoenaing of congressional phone records. It says a May 17, 2023 email from the Biden administration's Department of Justice to Smith's team proves explosive, with the public integrity section, quote, concurring in the subpoenas for the toll records for the identified members of Congress. Basically, the Biden administration and Special Counsel Jack Smith were investigating not just Trump and everything else around him. They were investigating basically all the key leaders of the Republican side of the political circle. Major organizations, including, for example, like Turning Point USA. Major organizations involved in Republican get out the vote operations, major Republican figures, members of Congress who were Republicans, Trump's team, a lot of them. This was basically an investigation of like half of the, political infrastructure of the United States on the Republican side of the ticket. This was extremely broad. It says the email may represent the first public evidence that the Biden administration's DOJ knew the special counsel's office planned to subpoena congressional Republicans. And if the DOJ was involved, that could implicate many of them if, and that's a big if because we don't have answers on it yet, if they knew that illegal actions were taking place and they did not stop it, or they allowed it, or they encouraged it, or assisted in it, because we are seeing evidence of assistance. The big question is, did they do it knowingly? It says, but the scandal is even greater because in concurring in Smith's use of his subpoenas to target communications of members of Congress, the DOJ, the Department of Justice, the Public Integrity Section, expressly acknowledged the unconstitutionality of the proposed course of action, suggesting that the section of the DOJ that is supposed to be the watchdogs, right, the Public Integrity Section, knew about it, acknowledged that it was illegal, and somehow allowed it to take place. And here's what they said, quote, as you are aware, there is some litigation risk, meaning you could be sued or charged. There is some litigation risk regarding whether compelled disclosure of toll records of a member's legislative calls violates the speech or debate clause in the D.C. Circuit. The principal deputy chief of the DOJ's Public Integrity Section, John Keller, wrote, documented, now released publicly, in a May 17, 2023 email to 2 top members of the special counsel's team. That is a big deal. It says significantly, that email then cited the controlling precedent of United States v. Rayburn House Office Building 497 F3D. This is 654-662 D.C. Circuit 2007, citing that appellate court decisions holding that under the speech or debate clause, quote, the bar or compelled disclosure is absolute, meaning there are no exceptions to it. It says that email also cited an RE grand jury investigation, and I won't name all these things, as establishing the, quote, case law is clear that a legislator, member of Congress, asserting the invasion of the speech or debate clause privilege by use of a grand jury subpoena to a third party may intervene and oppose such use. Meaning somebody could get sued, and meaning you might see some criminal charges against these people if the Trump administration chooses to do so. At the very least, this opens the door to further investigations and potential charges. The question is whether they'll do it. But also I'll add this, on the point of the prosecutions of key figures, maybe they'll do it, maybe they won't in operations of this sort. And this goes back to not even include Arctic frost. It also includes the whole Trump-Russia hoax, because there's allegation of a grand conspiracy, a conspiracy that basically goes back over a decade, including Trump's first term in office, his first campaign, the formation of the Trump-Russia hoax, again, to illegally investigate and spy on them, leading again into the 2016 elections, and then into the 2020 elections, and even leading further into it, where that hoax was maintained. And again, was the spying that took place and the criminal charges an extension of what was done during Trump's first term, investigating, trying to impeach him, the appointment of special counsels, using false information? Is this a grand conspiracy, or were these isolated investigations being carried out? Maybe because people didn't know. That is the big question. But guess what? FBI Director Kash Patel spoke with Yanya Kellick of the Epoch Times as American thought leaders, and he said something big may be coming soon. Watch.
Because it's pending in terms of appellate status and what we are going to do for the next steps, the judicial process can make whatever determination it wants, but we, the FBI, and our partners at the DOJ have numerous options to proceed, and we're executing on all those options. So we're not done.
Any detail available?
I would say stay tuned for right after Thanksgiving, and you'll see multiple responses, in my opinion.
So you've initiated some cultural changes at the FBI. That's something that many people have talked about. Some people like it, some people don't. What would you say is the most?
So the question is, will there be investigations? Yes, currently there are investigations. Will there be charges? Maybe. A lot of them are facing criminal charges, people who would be technically involved within these issues. The problem is a lot of them not being charged in relation to this. They're being charged with like real estate crimes or lying to Congress. But as I mentioned before, that does open broader investigations into their communications, broader investigations into them and their finances. And if there are broader investigations, that does open the door to possible charges related to this if they didn't delete evidence or something like that. The bigger context of this, though, is frankly, we don't know. And as Kash says, you got to stay tuned. So we will see. That said, questions, comments, anything you want to talk about, leave it in the chat. Let's jump into discussion. And let's see here. I know a lot of you are probably wondering about, you've probably seen the stuff around the Somali community in Minnesota and the allegations of mass fraud being carried out where people were defrauding the social welfare system to the tune of like billions of dollars. And they were even sending money to like Al-Shabaab and whatever in Somalia, like actual terrorist organizations carrying out human rights abuses. And allegations that the governor in the state, Tim Walz, was involved in that somehow. He's currently being investigated. There's too much to talk about with that today, so I want to go into that tomorrow. So if you want my take on some of that, join me tomorrow for that. But let's jump into some questions for now. First off, Ashley from California, you said there must be actual consequences of the kinds of actions illegally using the DOJ to go after political opposition. Otherwise, both sides will continue to just go after each other until we're left with a totalitarian uniparty. Yeah, and this is the challenge, right? Trump and the entire MAGA movement, and because of that, basically a lot of the Republicans now, have been target of investigations, false news reporting, which led to additional criminal investigations, the Trump-Russia hoax, the appointment of special counsels to investigate attempts to remove him from office, novel interpretations of laws to bring criminal charges that we've never seen before. Almost all of the criminal charges brought against Trump during the Biden administration, almost all of them involved things we've never seen before. right? Novel interpretations of the law, even including against the J6ers and the use of, disruption of an official proceeding, which was deemed later to be only usable for financial crimes. They were interpreting law in ways that's never been done before in order to bring charges against Trump and his supporters. We've seen, for example, in New York, where they even changed the statute of limitations for 1 year to open a window to bring charges against Donald Trump, and then closed that loophole. Like, how do you change the law to bring charges against somebody and then change it back after you bring charges against them? They did that to Trump. And so, the bigger question is, was that intentional? Was this, the weaponization of the justice system, as Trump puts it? Was that just the normal carrying out of law? And the big question they're going to have to find is, well, were there communications to support the idea that this was done with the intent of, a political motivation to bring criminal charges and do all that crazy stuff? The problem you have now, though, is that when Trump is basically in charge and he's saying, hey, Justice Department, go after this, Justice Department, go after that, the other side of the political aisle, the Democrats and a lot of the media, most of the media, they're saying that Trump is the one weaponizing the justice system. And so the question is, well, who did it first, right? That's going to be the big question. For example, let's say a hypothetical, right? You have a police force that has been taken over by a mafia. And the mafia is manipulating the police force in such a way as to hide their own actions and to target their enemies. A new police force comes in and tries to dismantle that and then go after the people involved with that. Who is the guilty party? Is it the group that did it first, or the group trying to dismantle what is alleged to have been a corruption of the justice system? Because again, the targeting of the justice system and the rooting out of an alleged problem, let's put it this way, the threshold, the basis of the argument would have to be whether or not the initial conspiracy is true or not. Because if it turns out, if you believe that the justice system had been weaponized, then what Trump is doing is completely justified, because it is uprooting all the corruption within the system that allowed it to happen in the first place. And you need to clear that out in order to clean house. If you don't believe that threshold, then it means that Trump is basically purging his enemies within the entire system and doing what he accused the other side of doing. So, and the problem is, within what is provable under law, because there's not yet been full-scale investigations, let alone criminal charges, a lot of Democrats still believe, at least based on what we see, they still believe that they're the innocent party. They still believe Trump is a felon. Trump is a convicted felon. They still believe all that, right? And when you have the guy convicted of that, the guy who was a Russian asset and all this stuff, doing that, and again, these people have not been charged, but only these people have. They believe that Trump's entire cabinet was people being criminally investigated, basically, because they were. If you believe these people are the ones now launching investigations of the people who did that against them, then how do you, what I'm getting to is, which do you define as having weaponized the justice system? Now, that being said, my opinion is I believe that the justice system was massively weaponized against Trump and his allies. I believe that there's enough of a threshold to prove this. The Trump-Russia thing was an absolute hoax. Again, you had novel interpretations of law, changing statute limitations, using laws in ways they were never used before. There was illegal spying, not even just Arctic frost, as I was discussing, but even FISA abuse during Trump's first term in office. Epoch Times has been documenting this and exposing it in our investigations. I was involved in some of those investigations, exposing it, going back to 2016 and 2017, okay? And so based on my own personal investigations, based on my own reporting, based on the stuff we've been covering literally for a decade, I believe absolutely that the system of justice was weaponized. And I believe that what is being carried out, I hope, is a cleaning out of the systems that allowed that. Because I agree with you, Ashley from California, fully agree with you, that if the problems with the justice system are not fixed, we will lose our republic. Because let's put it this way, okay? Okay, let me go back in time. There's a book called The Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire, right? It was written just ahead of the founding of the American system, right? I believe right ahead of 1776, was it? It's an old book. Great book if you haven't read it. All right, does anybody know in the chat, tell me, what was cited as the time, the key incident at which the Roman Republic came to an end and became a totalitarian system? Let me know in the chat, and I'll tell you in a sec, okay? Let me know in the chat. Do you all know the incident or the change that was cited in that book as what led to the fall of the Roman Republic? The answer is this. As soon as the justice system became politicized, that was the time it fell. Because how do you differentiate a free society versus a totalitarian society? How do you differentiate a republic versus a dictatorship, a totalitarian regime? The difference is this. A totalitarian regime means total power. It means that you control everything. And a republic is technically a division of power. The political system exists separately from the justice system. As soon as you politicize the justice system works as an extension of a leader or a single party. And as soon as that happens, the republic comes to an end, technically. Whether you call it a republic or not, the republic has come to an end. And so, the independence of the justice system, the independence of a legal system, the independence and non-politicization of law is what defines a republic. You need to have separation of powers. Because if you don't separate the powers, it means the justice system has been co-opted as a tool to destroy enemies of the individual. That is how you define it. Again, cited in the Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire. And so, yeah, that is my concern about America. I do not want to see our justice system being politicized. I believe that will lead to the fall of the American Republic. The American Republic will be lost if our justice system is politicized. And I believe to an extent it already has been. I hope they're fixing it, not making it worse. And I do believe they are fixing it, but I hope it continues this way. This is, agree with me, disagree with me, that is my personal belief. I believe they are fixing it. And this is the survival of the American Republic here, if we take the example of Rome. All right. Lucy Park, 1899, you're saying, open the door of Arctic frost. Whatever has been hidden needs exposure. You know, and I think you got the nail on the head here. The greatest remedy to corruption is transparency. The greatest remedy to a corrupt system is transparency. Because if you're transparent, the public will demand justice. If the public is outraged that something took place, it will incentivize justice. Because if they don't see justice carried out when there is evidence of a crime, people will feel that aside from a politicized system, that there's a two-tiered power structure within the justice system. They will feel it's rules for thee and not for me. That if you're an official, you operate under a different system of justice than the peasants, right? Than all of us. And that risks leading to unrest. That risks leading to a revolt, depending on the scale of it. That risks leading to a lack of faith and a loss of trust within the integrity of the system. And the integrity of the system, and at least the perception of it, is what does maintain what they call the social contract, right? If you go back to Voltaire, right, the social contract. whereby people sacrifice a bit of their own sovereignty in order to establish among themselves a government. You can't break the social contract. If you break the social contract, you risk the stability of your entire system politically. And so, when you have Kash Patel, FBI director, talking about total transparency, I know Kash, he's a fantastic guy. Remember, Kash used to do a show with us, right? Kash's Corner, you might remember. He's a great guy. I believe that he understands this, and I believe that's why he keeps talking about transparency. The challenge they have is that there are a lot of checks and balances and laws they have to get through for, redaction and all this stuff. I do believe they're doing their best to expose things, to make it public. Trump keeps talking about it. Dan Bongino, yes, again, the assistant FBI director, keeps talking about it. Pam Bondi keeps talking about it, and Kash. And I believe they do want transparency. The bigger challenge, though, is we don't really know what's happening behind the scenes. We don't know how broad we don't know how serious what they're looking at actually is. But if they do act in total transparency and they reveal Arctic frost, if they act in total transparency, and remember now, Congress and Trump signed it, they're even saying they're going to release all the Epstein files. If in that public disclosure there is evidence of criminal wrongdoing, the justice system will be forced to, at risk of the integrity of our entire system, to bring criminal charges against every single person who is exposed to have been implicated within crimes. Otherwise, it is dangerous to our republic if they act at that level of transparency. And so I do think this is why they're taking a bit of time with it, because it's not so simple. A lot is at stake with transparency. A lot is at stake with transparency. And the other side of it is if what is disclosed is significant enough that it would implicate huge numbers of people, that if it would implicate members of Congress or government officials or foreign officials or major business leaders or heads of NGOs or large numbers of people, you risk kind of upsetting the basic stability of the government, right? It's like, imagine you have an example. Does anybody know about trauma victims in surgery? If you get stuck with a knife, what do you not do? If you get stabbed, what don't you do? You don't pull it out. Why don't you pull it out? If you pull it out, you're going to bleed to death, right? The open wound, you can die from it. If you ever get stabbed, leave the knife in until you go to the hospital. Then they can pull it out. A major injury or a significant form of damage to a system requires a surgical extraction. Otherwise, you will kill the victim. I would say it's the same thing with major corruption. You can't just yank it out. You need to do it slowly and carefully, or you will kill the victim. And you probably need to do it in increments if it is a large enough problem. Imagine the American system, and there are multiple knives stuck in the body of our system. We've been injured in multiple ways. We have many injuries. Were you to extract these all at the same time, the victim would die. And I would say that's an accurate analogy to the state of our country. There's a lot of problems we have. If you were to deport everybody right now, and if you were to go after every element of corruption, if you were to go after probably half of our political system, depending on, I'm not saying Republican, Democrat, but the number of people could be implicated in this, you would cause such a massive reaction, a shock to the system, that you would risk killing the victim. And you don't want that. So it needs to be done slowly. And the problem is the victim wants the knives out, right? The victim's like, "Doc, pull him out, doc, please, I beg you." And the doctor's saying, I'm doing it, be patient, your survival is at stake. I believe that's where our country's at. And I personally believe that's why they're taking their time with some things, frankly. They're telling us publicly, they're telling us, we're investigating this, we're investigating that, stay tuned for this, we're releasing this. The problem a lot of people have is they're like, yeah, you've been telling us this for a long time, where is it? I do think that the problem is serious enough where they can't do it all at once. And in my interpretation, that's the reality of it. I mean, look, agree with me, disagree with me, but, and this is me, again, as an investigative reporter for what? I've been an investigative reporter for, 15 years? 17? 17 years I've been an investigative reporter. And, I've seen a lot of crazy stuff, okay? The things I've seen and the things I've written about, frankly, the problems I understand are broad enough that if people see it piecemeal, right? You've seen this, my investigation I've done on this, you've seen my investigation done on that. And individually, we can all recognize that's a big deal, that's a big deal, that's a big deal. You have to understand, in my mind, I see it holistically. I see the whole picture. I see what I exposed with the Spygate. I see what I exposed with, we're talking about Arctic frost now. I see what I exposed with the weaponization of justice, which I believe did take place. I see what I exposed with the migration fraud. I see what I exposed with China involved with the cartels and the problem of mass cartel corruption in the United States. I see fraud. I see all these things. And I see what happened with the J6ers. And you might remember my documentaries, The Real Story of January 6th and others, where I talked about the problems with that, which have now been acknowledged, by the way. I see all of this simultaneously. And I can tell you, if you look at the broad picture, it is a big problem. And I do hope it can be fixed. And I believe, because I know him, Kash Patel, FBI director, I believe I know, because he's talked about it, frankly, he understands that as well. There are a lot of problems. They are very serious problems. I do believe they're working on fixing them because I think they understand, as Trump has repeatedly said, and everyone has repeatedly said, that the fate of our republic rests on this. It is a very big issue. And I do have faith and I do have hope that they're doing the right thing, personally. But we shall see, right? Another question here, Seymour Butts, you're saying, Josh, the government used to be feared by most of the world, the U.S. government. You says it seems that it is no longer feared and people find it easy to abuse it. Do you agree that this is part of the problem we face today? It is, and not to leave that part out too. America is being scammed. America is being ripped off. America is being abused by nearly every government and country on the face of the planet. Whether it is through, again, us basically paying for their defense, whether it is us subsidizing their medical system, whether it is us making trade deals where we trade at a deficit, we actually lose with them, whether it is us allowing them to tariff us, and until now we have not tariffed them, whether it is us allowing them to defraud us by not allowing FDA inspectors to look at the quality or integrity of their factories, which is a big problem with China, by the way. Great book if you want to read about that, Poorly Made in China. It's an older book, but Poorly Made in China talks about that. Great book. Whether it is us allowing them to make money by killing our children through the drug trade, like China's involved with and a lot of countries in Latin America are involved with. Whether it is us allow them to export criminality into America with mass migration, gangs, cartels, and otherwise, which have been effectively decriminalized in a lot of countries, including through the Foro Sao Paulo, which works with FARC and narco-terror organizations, which again facilitated the political careers of most politicians throughout Latin America. And then working with the Chinese Communist Party to do that. I think that's a big problem. America has been abused, we've been ripped off, we've been scammed, our people have been killed. What is the number of people killed every year by drugs from these traffickers? Quite a lot. How many American jobs and factories were lost, not even just to China, but to bad trade deals we made with Canada and Mexico? A lot. And so the problem is global. And I do think the reason they laugh at us and don't fear us and don't respect us is because we're the global fool. We're the global guy that everybody takes advantage of and laughs at and says, you're such an idiot, you know, we're going to scam you and take advantage of you because you let us. And we have been that for a very long time. And, you know, the perception of Americans by a lot of these people is they say, you know, we're fat and stupid, basically. And, you know, maybe we were, but not anymore, right? We got Ozempic now. We got the power of the future now. So maybe that's changing. Right? I'm half joking here, right? But I do think that will change. I do think that is changing now that Trump is saying no more. No more, we're not going to allow it anymore. And what he's threatening them with is the pulling out of American leniency, American support. Now, back to the point of what I was talking about before, where you have a victim with multiple knives stuck in them. You also have multiple benefits propping up a lot of other countries. If Trump were to pull out all the bad trade deals, if Trump were to pull out the subsidizing of defense for like Western Europe, if Trump were to pull out the subsidizing of a lot of the United Nations, for example, of NATO, for example, of the global pharmaceutical industry, for example, of foreign aid, for example, the structure, or even just renegotiating trade deals with many countries, even doing reciprocal trade. Like Canada said they couldn't even survive a 10 to 20% tariff when Trudeau was in office, right? And Trump's talking about higher than that. The current system of the world has been built upon the foundation of taking advantage of America from that perspective. And if America were to pull out, you know, a huge portion of what is the foundation of the economies, the systems of welfare, and the systems of government, or, you know, because so much of their budget is dependent on this, is based on this, you would have a reshuffling of the entire global economic and political system. If he were to do it right away. And so I believe that that is striking fear into the hearts of many right now. Nobody dares pull out that little Jenga block because the tower may risk falling down, so to speak. But Trump's talking about doing it. Now, to what extent will he do it? To what extent will he be allowed to? Remember, the Supreme Court's actually looking at even the legality of the tariffs right now. We'll have to wait and see. But I can tell you, I guarantee that a lot of the international powers that used to laugh at America, they're not laughing right now because there's a lot of power being wielded right now that has never been wielded before. And the big question is, will the madman do it? You know what I mean? Will the madman do it? And he just might. And by the way, he just got his MRI taking place, and it turns out he's not a madman at all. He knows what he's doing. Another question here, Tree of Liberty. You're saying, Josh, I have been saying this for years about the SNAP program. Why are people allowed to buy sugary cereal and other things that are not nutritious for people? So, I mean, the argument for a lot of people on SNAP is, my kids can't enjoy a soda. My kids can't enjoy some Captain Crunch. What do you mean my kids can't enjoy cereal? There's two issues with this. First of all, I don't think that stuff's good for you. I don't think that's a healthy breakfast. It's probably contributing to the obesity epidemic, right? These sugary products and so on. Part of the problem we have with SNAP benefits is a lot of people who are on them are also obese. Why is that? It's probably because they're eating over-processed foods. I know the American diet has been not very good it used to not be this way, but not very good for a very long time. Basically, since the introduction of major processed foods, right? I would actually say that you can't really interpret a condition under the existence of a current condition. And what do I mean by that? What I mean by it is this. One of the big ironies of SNAP, right, supplemental food assistance and food stamps, is that it is one of the major supporting factors for a lot of these major corporations, whether it be like Walmart and the types of foods they provide, whether it be Coca-Cola Company and the types of drinks they provide. You have a lot of these corporations that make a lot of money off SNAP because the people who are on those programs tend to buy a lot of that. What would happen if one of the major elements of the consuming force, meaning supply and demand, meaning good old capitalism, right? What happens if the consumers are no longer able to consume a product and the sale of that product represents a good chunk of your income? What do you do as a company? Do you say, oh no, I guess I'll lose a quarter of my business and go out of business because that's my product and they just made it so they can't buy my product? Do you think that's going to happen? No. Why is that? Because of good old capitalism. What happens if a major corporation is risking losing a quarter of its market? And I'm just throwing out a number here hypothetically, or this is probably different. But just hypothetically speaking, you're going to lose a quarter of your market because a product that this guy used to consume, they're no longer able to buy. What do? Thanks to capitalism, you meet the demands of the market, obviously. I'm going to create a similar product, as similar as I can to what they used to consume, but that meets the new standard of health or safety as defined by a new regulation. That is what happens. And so were it to take place, if the federal government were to restrict the use of SNAP benefits for to purchase certain products, the companies that provide those products, because of capitalism and true capitalism, would then be incentivized to create replacement products as similar to that as they possibly can, which would be better for those people. And so that's the way it works. When you have people complaining, oh no, how dare thee deprive my children of this? The result of such a thing would not be a deprivation. The result of such a thing would be a repairing and a fixing of the problem that has been identified, in this case, non-healthy food, in order to provide a better product to the people who are consuming it. You would probably make people healthier. A regulation like this would be better for these kids, is the way I would foresee it because of the way that capitalism works. And so, to your point, Tree of Liberty, I agree with you. These things are terrible for kids. They're terrible for them. And I do think that if they were to regulate that and prevent the use of it, the result would be better because the companies would create a better product. They'd be incentivized to. All right, everyone, that said, there's so much to talk about. There's a lot I wanted to talk about today but couldn't, so join me tomorrow for another chapter of the way our world turns. In the meantime, let me know in the chat, what do you think? Do you agree with me? Do you think there'd be better products being offered were they to ban the purchase of some things using SNAP? Let me know in the chat. Do you think I'm right or wrong? Also, let me know what you think of the show. Leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. In the meantime, thank you so much for being here, and as always, please take care of yourselves, stay informed, stay free. Thank you.